Ricky, you're up.
Hi, I'm Ricky. Right outside of Detroit, Michigan, and the whole day was good. Everything went well. Dinner, everything.
Good. And you loved that YouTube episode, didn't you?
Yeah, it was. There was some funny parts in it. Yeah.
It was a long one. Captions are hard, so I probably should have broken that one up, but it is what it is. So
It's funny. Before I even watched that, I posted a new picture of myself, and then I posted a picture of a dandelion that I took. And parts of the stuff that you had said, I actually did and didn't even know.
Yeah, that's why it's Thirst Trap 101.
It's rubbing off on me.
It's some basic rules in there. Yeah. Thank you, Ricky, for joining. It's good to see you. Zach, I'm looking at you next.
I'm Zach, and I'm in Houston. And let's see, best part of my day would be honestly, this is probably going to be the best part of my day. I've been working so much today.
Good.
Yeah. That and it's just one more week in the semester, and I cannot tell you how done I already am.
Good. Summer's coming, so that's exciting. It's nice to see you, and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
All righty. Thank you all for joining us. It's our third week of doing Stud Talk, and I'm kind of excited. We've made it this far. We're doing well. And the way it works for those of y'all who have not joined us before is all of y'all have kind of submitted questions for me. And what I like to do is kind of rotate between talking to you guys and answering them. And I'll flip to a PowerPoint where I show you some cool photos. And so with that, let's do a little screen share. Okay, it's May 7th for Stud Talk. Y'all are gonna love our guest. I visited with him earlier this week. It's the Leather Gentleman. I sure as hell hope y'all are following him on Instagram because he's got a good one. With that, let's go to our first question. It's from Ricky. What season do you most like to shoot in? I hope y'all know the answer to this. I hope it's very, very obvious.
Summer.
But I do have, is that a guess, Summer? I do have some photos to illustrate it. I don't think I would have been able to share any of these on Instagram, so just a treat for y'all. But it's not a traditional season, if that's a little bit of a clue. The thing about Seersucker season, so I'm kind of a traditionalist with the Seersucker, and I only like to wear it out during that time frame, Easter to Labor Day. Now, I will make an exception because I've got to kind of keep this branding going. Like if I have a photo shoot in December, it's on. I'm gonna wear the suit to get started, but I wouldn't wear it out like for an occasion. And it's a little bit funny. So some of y'all joined us for Kyle's episode, and he talked about getting some of the negativity and really tough comments or messages, and major knock on wood, it's really just positive. I guess I've gotten some weird ones here every now and then, except people really wanted to come at me a little bit about the Seersucker thing and how I need to be empowered to like wear that all year round. And I'm like, this is a personal fashion choice. Like this, I'm not oppressed here, you know, but they felt that I was being too restrictive upon myself. And y'all, that's just kind of a nice little fashion rule that I like to abide by. I think that the photographers, especially that's why I think often that the photographer model relationship is really symbiotic in a way and like mutually beneficial, because it's the model is pretty much kind of an exhibitionist, right? I mean, they are enjoying that attention, and the photographer likes looking at, you know, like giving the attention. And so some of mine have been very strong at capturing that through their photography. And Tate, if y'all look at my pictures of Tate, like, and I'm releasing him now. I'm starting on a new set by him. He captures that element really well. Like sometimes he'll do cool shit where if we're outside, he will like pull a branch down and shoot from behind it just to give the impression that he is looking at me from somewhere that I don't know that he's there. Like it's hot, and I think it's a lot of fun. And those are a few of my turn-ons, David. It's from Zach. Okay, really good question from Zach. Do you have a mentor or role model that helped shape who you are today? And Zach actually gave me another one that had to do with something that I learned during the pandemic. And this answer that I'm about to give kind of tied into both of those. And a little warning, this might, sometimes I can get a little emotional, maybe not, hopefully not, but my role model is definitely gonna be my dad. There he is. This was taken, I used to volunteer a lot with the Victory Fund. If y'all know that organization, they raise money for LGBTQ candidates across the country to try to get them elected to all levels of government, like city council up to well, Mayor Pete was a big Victory endorsed candidate, but U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin is kind of the shining star in the Senate. But this was at a big fundraiser brunch I was co-chairing, and my dad this is our mayor, our current mayor, Sylvester Turner, when he was running for mayor. So all of the candidates were there, you know, all of the progressive candidates, of course, are at these fundraisers to try and shake hands and show their support for the LGBT community. One of the best things I think about Houston is our gay community is very politically active, very organized. Our caucus gives out the GLBT caucus gives out an endorsement, and it's highly sought after by the progressive candidates. But now I've strayed away from the question. So my dad is no longer with us. He passed away in December of 2018. And it was sudden. He was only 70. It was a cardiac arrest. And I had a really, really great dad. Like he was outstandingly wonderful. And by that, I mean, he just, he loved me unconditionally. And he was very, very proud of me, extremely proud of me. We did have a few things that we got resolved. Like I thought growing up that he treated me a little differently because I was gay and he knew it, or all of this is in my head, you know? And it was, and I just talked it out with him, and he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I'm sorry. And no, like, that's not, you know, like, that's just how I am. And I didn't change my behavior, based on anything like that. So when he did pass away, I just was so happy that, there weren't any unresolved issues. And the reason I wanted to say it kind of related to your second question, Zach, about the pandemic is, when he passed away, I kind of dove right into helping my mom just get reorganized. And my dad was the most hyper organized. He was an engineer. And so, oh my God, like all the usernames and passwords of everything were just like right at our fingertips. But I helped my mom with all that. And I didn't, and he did, there was no funeral. That's typical him too. Like, don't be doing that. It's a waste of money. So we did have a little life celebration for him, which was great and healing. But I didn't really, I don't think, start thinking about how much he means to me until the quiet of the pandemic and the isolation. And it just was, it was good. It was good that I made it through that. I felt like he was with me, like I really did. So both of those related to my dad. So thank you for those questions. What was it like? Were you able to form friendships if you were moving around a lot?
I was, ironically, I think, because even though we did move, we were stationary in those places for several years.
Okay.
So I was fortunate to not have to necessarily bounce around like every year or so. But yeah, I did have a good network of friends, small group, I should say. I was kind of a geeky kid. And so I've been watching, ironically, I've been watching Stranger Things lately on Netflix, and really remembering how that felt like, and identifying with the group of kids in that show, because I was pretty much like that growing up, nerdy and geeky and all that.
I think I'm behind on some seasons, but I definitely watched like the first season, and the 80s references are solid. Like, and I love some Winona Ryder. I love her. I love her.
Right.
Since we're talking about family a little bit, can you talk to us about coming out? What was that like? How did it go with your family?
So that's an interesting story. So I came out in high school in the 11th grade, and it was in my English class. We had to like read an essay about something that we wrote, and I somehow worked in me being a member of the gay community as I read aloud, and so that was my coming out. But I was so afraid still to tell my parents, so it was something that was known at school but not really known at home. I didn't really come out at home until like just after high school. I told my father first, and then I told my mother last. I was very close to my mother. She passed away several years ago, but I was very close to her, so I always felt a little bit, I don't know, just self-conscious in telling her, because I was afraid of her reaction. It was a tough reaction because, you know, she was very into the church.
Yeah.
But she kind of came around. I think what really convinced her that there was nothing to be so alarmed about was that I was still just the same person that she knew. I think she was in her mind, she must have thought that me being gay meant that I'm just going to suddenly become something unrecognizable to her. When it really was just, I just like boys. That's it. Like, that's the only thing that's different. A lot of people come to Boston to go to school.
Yeah.
So I came here to pursue a master's degree in vocal performance. And so my whole educational background is in music. I'm a trained singer, classical singer. I did have a brief career in opera, but I still do perform on occasion, but it's not my main gig anymore. I transitioned into working in sales and retail sales, which is what I do now. I work in the world of fine jewelry. And before that, I was also working in apparel, men's and women's apparel, but been jewelry the last couple of years. So that's what brought me here. And I didn't intend to stay here as long as that, but I just kind of got caught up in being independent, like truly independent for the first time in my life, and being in a new place, a new plateau. So Boston kind of sucked me in that way.
Our guests that are with us are maybe going to be a little bit mad if I don't ask. So you don't have to do this. Okay. But could you give us a little test of some singing? Is that possible?
I should have prepared for that. Sure, I can maybe do a little something.
Just a little something.
Non ti andrai, farfallone amoroso, notte giorno d'intorno dirando. I'm saying the wrong words, but that's how it sounds. that's my voice.
Well, thank you. It seems to me, my observation is that there is a it's lacking to have Black men of color with these type of sexy pages, and I don't like that. I have a commitment even with my show to have a diverse group of people that come on and participate. Can you talk about that a little bit? Why do you think that is, and what can we do to make it more diverse?
In my opinion, I really believe, actually, I should say, in my opinion and in my experience, it really, I think that really comes from the way that the perception of how everything is out there with people who are like, trying to think of the right way to say this, sorry. When you see accounts that are predominantly, cisgender Caucasian men, there is somehow, it just kind of gets swept up into this momentum because it's what people expect to see. And when there's a dark-skinned person of color, Black person of color, however you want to, whatever it may be, somehow it doesn't seem to connect with people for some reason. It's not something people think of as these images. And I think a lot of men, or people, I should say, that may have an interest in sharing this side of themselves are discouraged because it's not what they're seeing represented in general. It's not receiving the same kind of response. And I know from my own experience, it can be very disheartening when you do put a lot of effort into something and you really do believe in representing your true drive and inclination, and it just kind of doesn't get any kind of traction. It doesn't seem to catch on with people. But then there's another account that will do pretty much the same thing, but maybe not as, it may not have the same angle or composition, but it's basically the same thing. And then it just, all of a sudden it goes viral. And you're just like, okay, well, is it the pose? Is it this? It's not the pose, it's not this, like, what is it? So I think it's, I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but it just, to me, it's hard to feel attractive. It's hard to feel like we're being considered viable. And so I think a lot of people may not feel inclined to create pages based on this because the overall system of how Instagram works and how people receive that imagery feels as if it's just not going to be I shouldn't say validated, it wouldn't be appreciated.
Popular. Well, thank you for your insight there. My comment in response to that is about representation, and that what you're doing is very important to show other folks that this is hot as shit. I mean, if there are Black men of color that are looking for, sort of role models in this arena of what we all enjoy doing and looking at, you've got to be one of them for sure, because it's just a really, really strong page, and you can tell how it's just very quality. So thank you, and I hope that it is really making a difference.
When it comes to like the leather aesthetic, I think nowadays we're so caught up in everything being like full gear, you have to do this or it's not really authentic. And I'm like, no, actually that's kind of bull, because when you look back in time, even as recent as the 80s and the 90s, there was a mix. Leather really came from working class. It was really a mix of street culture. It was a mix of a lot of things. And so there's no one way to be leather. And I take a lot of inspiration from those vintage images and magazines, films, etc. And I'm like, they were just as much of a leather guy as someone in full bluff. And I'm a bluff member, but I like to break outside of that box, if you will. And so that's what inspired that particular photo.
Thank you for sharing and explaining that. I love being gay. I really like it. And I like I like hearing from you that there's like a discussion within the community. Like I love all of the subsets or subcultures of our big rainbow. Is just,
Oh, yes.
I just think it's fantastic.
The best advice is to just remember to do what makes you happy. Share what you want to share and share what is really you. Don't try to chase after the trends that you see or to, imitate what you think everyone else wants. You have to just do, and you have to bring you have to bring you to the table, no matter what. Thank you. And this has been such a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. Thank you. No, I kick this off, and thank all of the guests tonight. I want to give you all like a round of applause too. It means a lot to me. I'm just getting this off the ground a little bit, and the goal is, well, first of all, I'm just getting to know Ulysses and some of these other guys is, to me, this is like a dream come true. Like I am just so into them. And so it makes me happy that I can associate a real person with this character that I love on my Instagram. But I hope y'all or some of y'all getting out of what I want to happen is that it's a mix between the fantasy and the reality. And I love the fantasy, but I love the reality too. Like I love to get to know the real you, hear where you're from, what you've gone through and what inspires you. So I appreciate you taking part.